The Nike Zoomfly 6 versus the Asics Novablast 5. Which one is the better daily trainer, and or do these shoes complement each other in a daily trainer routine? Let's compare and contrast and find out. So before we get into the video, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're already subscribed to watching the content. Thanks so much, I love you guys a lot. You make sure you follow me on Instagram and Strava for all sorts of other updates and things like that, including my Run-A training program for the March Madness half marathon coming up in a couple of weeks here as we try to break sub 125 in the half marathon. That would be pretty crazy on the course that is going to be done on. So without further ado, let's begin. Specs for both shoes up here. Right off the rip, just spec-wise, you'll probably see that they're extremely similar in stack height and kind of close in weight, but in the shoe world, they're pretty distant just because of a couple of other things going on. And if you've already watched this channel, you already know some of the general differences between both of these, but we'll just go over everything, make sure we don't miss a beat here, and then we'll get into which one you should probably consider buying more than the other, and so forth. So yeah, right off the rip, both of them have about a 40 to 41 millimeter heel, and they have about 33 in the forefoot, making them both technically illegal for elite runners to race in because they exceed the 40 millimeter heel stack height threshold. That's okay. If you're an elite, you're probably not racing in these. Training, probably a different story, right? But that puts them both at an 8 millimeter offset respectively, which in my case, we'll get into this a little bit later, with the Alpha Fly 3 also being an almost similar stack height to both of these shoes. I personally feel that training in these complements running in that shoe a little bit later, right? For race day, for example. So let's get into the shoes with their individual breakdowns. As you guys probably already know, we're talking carbon plate shoes in the Zoomfly 6. We do have that fly plate technology in this shoe, along with our ZoomX foam and this EVA foam compound that sandwiches the foam in between. We have the ZoomX compound running the top of the shoe, and then we have that EVA compound sitting on the bottom to provide more protection and resistance from the ground, with the ZoomX providing more of a spring, and then the carbon plate to help with the ZoomX to get that propulsion springy effect from the shoe overall, right? We do have different rubber compounds kind of following the shoe, mostly protecting the heel and this forefoot area with the pattern that exists. And then in the upper, we have this kind of two-stage mesh that we'll see that we have this translucent layer here, and then we have the inner sock layer mesh, which they do just complement one another. I think that internal mesh is more to keep your foot sort of protected and locked in, whereas this top layer is probably to prevent some of the elements from sinking into this sock mesh layer that's sort of presented. So if you're running during the winter, it might protect a little bit. I don't think it's meant to be a winter running shoe. You probably can do it, it's just not going to be great, and it may be uncomfortable if you're running in pretty deep snow, right? We do have the gusseted tongue, of course, and we have a pretty standard shoelace kind of pattern here going across, and we do have some cushioning on the lip of the shoe. Overall, I've said from the Zoomfly 6 perspective, I was kind of cautiously optimistic about the shoe just because it's been a better direction for the Nike product overall. But that being said, I'm not like, this isn't the greatest carbon plate everyday racer shoe I've ever used, but it is a big comeback from the Zoomfly 5, which I thought was just this brick of a shoe that I did not like, and despite what it was on paper, it was just not robust enough for me to have a good speed workout in. So yeah, carbon plate wise, still pretty decent shoe. It's going in the right direction. Not the best thing I've ever used, right? When we get into the Novablast 5, we don't have a carbon plate. In fact, we have just 100% rubber and this trampoline pad as our main sources of propulsion in the shoe, or rebound, spring, whatever you want to call it, which if you want to have a more comfortable ride is sort of the direction you want to go into, right? So we have that FF Blast Max foam running the duration of the shoe, which puts this shoe, based on its stack height and the mass foam stack that we have, it puts it in a max cushion set of running product. So it's not your everyday runner, it's not your comfort shoe. Well, this would be considered your comfort shoe. I would say it's your max cushion shoe, technically on the spectrum of running shoes. So not so much of a race day shoe, but you can use it for race day. But it's designed to keep your easy runs super comfortable and just keep you happy and your feet feeling refreshed for your faster workouts when the time comes for those, right? Now, in the upper, again, we have its Asics compound, just kind of running the duration of the shoe. Really good technology overall. I was running in the snow with this thing, and I would say that it doesn't absorb snow all too well, which is good. I think the point here is that it doesn't necessarily rebound any sort of the elements, but it won't sink into the upper nearly as bad as something that has like a more cotton-styled cushion on the upper, right? And then we do have our gusseted tongue with a pull tab to help keep the tongue straight across the shoe, or however you want to line it up with, you know, the front arch area of your foot following the tibia. And then again, we have a run-of-the-mill sort of lip of the shoe with as much cushion and I'd say stability as the shoe can offer for what it is, right? So that kind of breaks down our general specs. Now let's get into the actual comparing and contrasting. If you had to buy one shoe off the rip, which would it be is the question, right? You can only pick one, okay? And you're training for a marathon. Which one would you probably choose to go with? Well, a lot of questions, of course, there kind of fall into play, which is that it depends. Like, do you already have a marathon race day shoe? Do you need a complementary shoe? Do you need a shoe that's going to do all of it for you, right? These are the questions I would consider when it comes to this point in contention, right? So let's say you're in my case, right? You have the Alphafly 3, and you just need a shoe to get you through your easy to tempo workouts and get you through some of those long runs, per se. I would immediately just tell you go for the Novablast 5 because you already have the Alphafly 3 for those threshold workouts. Like, yeah, it's a race day shoe, but it doesn't mean you can't train with it, right? You should probably be encouraged to train with it to know how it feels, break in the shoe just so you have a sweet spot for it, and you would be able to utilize it in that sense, right? If it's just exclusively shelved away for just race day stuff and you can only use one shoe, fine, use the Novablast 5, right? You'll get a lot done, but I think by shuffling multiple pairs of shoes, I think you'll have a better experience, right? Now, if you had options on the table and, you know, you have some run-of-the-mill daily trainer from, I don't know, Saucony or Nike, or you have the Novablast 5 already and you have your race day shoe, which happens to be what? The Hoka Rocket X2 or something, I don't know. I'm just making up shoes right now that you would probably race in. And you need a shoe that kind of sits in between that Asics and that Hoka race day shoe because you want to preserve the life of the Hoka shoe, but you need something that simulates it fairly close but adds an ability of difficulty because of the materials used or just the compounds of weight that are added to the shoe for additional protection from the elements. Then you would consider something like the Novablast, the Zoomfly 6 to complement your Novablast 5 and your Rocket X2. So that's kind of the situation I'm in, which is that I have the everyday trainer / recovery max cushion shoe. I have my everyday racer for my tempo threshold workouts, and then I have the Alphafly 3 for my race day stuff and for some of my workouts as well. But if you were stuck with the decision of you can only buy one shoe because you can only afford one, go with the Novablast 5. You'll have a longer, I guess in the long term, you'll have a more comfortable workout. You'll have a more challenging workout if you're doing a long run in this shoe, just because I can imagine you'll get more fatigued the longer you go, and without the assistance of a carbon plate, you may feel your strides start falling apart gradually. So having this shoe as your long run shoe adds that challenge for when it comes to race day and you have your race day shoe and you won't feel as fatigued in a carbon plate. You'll genuinely surprise yourself in that case. Whereas if you run with this shoe for your long run workouts, you'll have a better sense of accuracy to where you will be with your carbon plate shoe. So it really comes down to, do you want the more challenging long run that'll be a little bit harder, that kind of puts your race into a more surprising category, or do you want to know sort of for certain on race day where you're going to be approximately if your plan goes up to where you need it to go? Or you push in this shoe during your long run training session, and then when you're in your race day shoe, that pushing you did makes the pace in your race day shoe feel a lot easier. So lots of questions and thoughts to kind of dwell upon in this case. But again, price point wise, I think the Novablast 5 is definitely way better on the price scale. But it has, no carbon plate, so you won't have that speed. But if you're not looking for speed, that's the way to go. If you're looking for that speed, that little bit of stiffness, but a little bit more of a punch from a shoe, this is the direction I would go, just in my opinion, right? So I think overall, that's where I would leave it in comparison. Again, it's sort of an apples and oranges comparison because the shoes are not really similar in technologies. They are similar in specs. Granted, the Zoomfly 6 is a little bit heavier than the Novablast 5, expected because of the materials used, right? And yeah, it's a pretty, I guess, night and day decision depending on your circumstances of what you got available. But if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns about the shoes, or you have an experience personal to you that may be beneficial for other viewers of this channel, send it down below in the comment section. And I think we'll leave it at that for now. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.